Hello, and welcome to I'm Too Busy. I'm Christina Flack, your host. I'm a celebrity makeup artist and CEO with a passion for all things beauty, wellness, and success. On this show, I'll take you on exciting journeys, sharing personal stories and insights from inspiring entrepreneurs. Together, we will explore manifestation, health, wellness, and the secrets to thriving in life and business. Let's jump in and get inspired. Hello, and welcome back to I Am Too Busy, where we get real with the leaders shaping beauty, wellness, and beyond. I am your host, Christina Flack, and today we are diving into a fresh, bold way brands are connecting with the next generation of consumers. My guest is Samantha Foster Bergeron. She is the founder of Uncover and the creator of Face Value, an immersive two-day conference designed to close the gap between brands and Gen Z. Samantha has worked with iconic names like Sephora, Lululemon, and Amazon, and she's redefining how brands listen, learn, and build trust. Welcome, Samantha. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. So, why don't you just tell me how your career started and how you started both these projects?
Absolutely. So I started in research really 20 years ago. I'm celebrating my 20th year um, owning Uncover. And really, I had a background in marketing and had sort of stumbled into market research and just really found this passion for understanding people kind of at their core, who they are, why they do what they do, how they shop. And I sort of managed early on to mirror that passion for understanding people with my passion for fashion and beauty. And so I have always worked in those industries. And you mentioned some of the brands I've worked for. But kind of early on, I was very focused on beauty and apparel brands like Gap and Nike and Levi's and Sephora. And I just really continued to build this practice and this belief that if brands understand who their consumers are kind of foundationally, then it serves as a filter to make all of their decisions, right? If I know that I am serving you, Christina, and I
Mhm.
really know you, then every time I try to make a decision, I can think to myself, would this resonate with Christina? Would she like this or would she not? And it's really a very simple idea, but of course, it requires a lot of work to help an entire organization understand their consumer. And then the other sort of fundamental belief that we operate under is that there's so much data. And, over 20 years, we've watched the amount of data just proliferate. It's amazing. I love data. But without an understanding of what's behind it, I don't know how useful it is, right? If you know 20% of your customers are buying X product, amazing. But if you know why, you can make so many decisions, right? You can be so strategic with that information. So we really strive to help brands understand the why.
Are they shocked when you come to them with this data? Like, does it really turn their business and their business models around because you're telling them information that are they surprised at, or did they kind of know?
That's a great question. And I would say that it's both. We all have sort of expectations, understandings, biases around who our customers are. And what I say every project, every brand, every client I work with is they're going to surprise you. And they do, right? Listening to a group of people explain their why is always illuminating. And there's always something to uncover, which is how I named my business. There's
Hmm.
always something that you didn't know. And again, hearing it firsthand just creates such a sort of deep understanding that you just can't replicate it. So yes, it is always surprising, but in the very best way. And I often say with clients that are a little skeptical, because certainly some clients are skeptical of qualitative research because we do talk to small samples at great depth versus thousands of people with quantitative
Hmm.
research. I always say it's just that first interview, that first conversation with the consumer where the light bulb goes off and they realize, oh, I couldn't get this information anywhere else. Now I'm a believer. And then our clients tend to stay with us for years and
Right.
years.
Why the old way of watching behind glass doesn't cut it anymore?
That's a great question. I mean, particularly with younger customers, I think there's a couple of things. I think observation there's benefit to it, but it's hard to sort of feel what's happening and really understand kind of the nuance when you're behind glass. And more, it's on a screen, right? We're doing so
Hmm.
much research virtually. And I just always say it's so much harder to do virtual research than it is in person because, yeah, you don't have to travel, but you also can't see the sort of body language. You can't sense the shift in the energy in the room when you ask a specific question. Like there's just so much unspoken that you can get in person that's harder to get virtually. And again, harder to sort of interpret if you're behind glass.
Hmm. How has Gen Z, how do they want to be engaged in authenticity, transparency, and real connection? Do you find that they're harder than past demographics?
It's such a good question. They are different. They are in some ways easier, in some ways harder to get to know, but every sort of, and such a big part of the reason that we're doing face value is because they are just so different than millennials and the previous, and the other generations before them. And one of the biggest differences in them is that they really expect to be collaborated with. Right. They've always had this sort of open dialogue with brands, with friends, with whoever they want to talk to, right? You can just hop online and DM virtually anybody and you're
Hmm.
likely to get an answer. So they just expect this sort of open dialogue. And because of that, they are very resistant to being told, right? They don't want a brand to say, you should buy this, you'll like this. They really expect it to be this much more organic kind of collaborative process. The best example that I have for that is that when we kicked off Face Value, uh, which is obviously focused on Gen Z, we sat down with a few of our ambassadors. So a few of the girls that will actually be at the conference. We were explaining what we were doing. We're saying, we really want your input to help us shape this event to be reflective of you. And they were so sweet and so helpful. And then they got about 15 minutes in the conversation and they said, can we talk about your website? And I said, sure. And they said, okay, so mostly it's great, but the color pink you used, it's wrong. It's too performative. We like pink, but not that shade of pink. These images you used, totally millennial. They are way too smiley. You need images that are much more natural and much less smiley. So we'd suggest you change those. We can help you. And I thought, I mean, it was humbling, if I'm honest, but
They like literally turned it on you. They like used all your own laws
yeah,
and they're like, they
in
did.
real time.
That is
And I just thought
hilarious.
like, oh,
How does
this is
that
so
feel?
validating. Like they are literally exemplifying why we are doing this and how helpful it is. Because of course, I just did what they said. And then I asked them for feedback and they were like, yeah, that's so much better. And then they gave me some guidelines moving forward. And obviously now we just have them submitting imagery and things for our communications,
That's
but
so
it was very
interesting.
funny. Yeah.
What makes face value different? Interactive booths, guided conversations, real time feedback.
Yeah. So the space value really came from this sort of awareness that I had as I've watched the industry sort of evolve that people, brands, leaders are seeing consumers in person less and less and less. And they're kind of there's this growing gap. And so I thought, what is a way to kind of create a one to many scenario versus our normal business model, which is one to one, right? A brand comes to us with a
Hmm.
question, we go and talk to a group of people and answer it for that brand. So, how could we make that sort of more democratic, available to more brands? And so we conceived of this idea of a conference where instead of vendors, you have consumers. And so it's very different in that we're not selling anything at the conference. We are truly using that sort of platform to help brands understand this consumer. So there'll be booths, but the booths will be staffed and designed by Gen Z consumers, and then they'll be sitting there so you can go see what all the beauty products they have. They'll bring all of their beauty products from home and you can see everything that they own and you can talk to them about how they chose what they chose. We'll also have booths where they're on social media, so big monitors with several girls on TikTok just scrolling. And you can go say, oh, hey, why did you stop there? What do you like about that? Tell me about this influencer. And while virtually no one can explain how they scroll social media in the abstract, when it's happening in real time, they can tell you, oh, anytime an influencer says X, I go to the TikTok shop, or anytime I see this, I do X. And you really start to understand how their mindset works and what leads them to actually make a purchase or adopt a brand.
That's amazing. So Why do you think beauty, wellness, and apparel leaders they can't afford to miss this event? They
I
can't afford to
mean,
miss this moment because it's incredibly impactful and powerful, quite frankly. Um,
truly. I mean, for me, I mean, obviously I'm biased, but I cannot fathom why every single beauty brand wouldn't come to this conference. It is such a unique opportunity to, again, learn about this customer, hear them react to your brand, understand kind of who they are at truly a fraction of the cost that a research project would cost. I mean, the value proposition is pretty nuts for a brand if you think about what it costs to do a big research project for, solely for a brand versus a ticket to this conference. I mean, it's less than a tenth of the cost. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think it's a new way of doing things. I think that currently the only thing holding brands back is that it is so new, and there's a lot of question about, oh, I've never heard of this. What will it look like? So this first really be proof of concept. I think it's going to be absolutely amazing. We're all, like I said, we're already learning from Gen Z. We're already learning from the girls we're having there, and the brands that we have coming are so excited about it and really helping us shape the event. So it's going to be amazing.
how many brands are going to be there?
We are expecting about 10 brands. We are intentionally keeping it very small because we want to
Mhm.
make sure that we can really sort of curate the experience for each brands and
Right.
make sure everybody gets value out of it. And then we have a group of sort of industry professionals, so people that work at ad agencies, marketing people, and what have you, that aren't maybe focused on a specific brand or a specific product that targets Gen Z, but just really wants to know more about this consumer.
What's the biggest misconception brands have about Gen Z?
The biggest. I mean, I think the biggest misconception is that they are similar to their predecessors. I think that a
Mm.
lot of brands are in this place where they know that they're different, but they don't quite understand how different, and they don't understand how they are different. And so we see a lot of brands talking to Gen Z, but it seems like they're talking to millennials. And again, Gen Z is very sensitive to that and they're quickly turned off. I think the other sort of misconception is that success with a product equals success as a brand. I think a lot of brands have had incredible success with a single product, right? You get a product in the right influencer's hands, it goes viral, everybody loves it. That doesn't necessarily translate to love for the brand, right? It's very easy for Gen Z to just pick up and go on to the next product without really embracing brands. And brands really have to create a personality, an engagement, a relationship with their consumers in order to have long-term success versus that kind of sets that spike that we see where one product is successful.
Do you think they're not as loyal to brands as past generations?
Oh, they're definitely not as loyal. I mean, they don't
Interesting.
really even think in terms of brands as much as previous consumers do. And again, it's all, nature of kind of how they shop and how they learn. They really learn much more about products than they do about brands. And there's so, there's fewer stores. The stores that they go to and love often have many brands. So if you think about Ulta, right? They love
Mhm.
Ulta, and that's a brand that they're very loyal to because it delivers for them over and over again. But the thousands of brands under Ulta's roof, you know, it's really hit or miss whether they feel connected to the brands, work on the brand's part to make sure that they've created a relationship with that consumer.
Gen Z's approach to beauty and wellness differ from the millennials.
Mhm. I mean, they're so focused on, I mean, I think that it differs in a lot of ways. I think the thing that always strikes me is they are so focused on authenticity, right? They really want things that feel like they're reflective of them. They really want to feel like they're not trying to be somewhere else, like they're adopting something that feels more like them. So they're much less trying to sort of fit into this mold. It's beautiful, right? It's amazing to hear these very young women talk about how important it is to be true to themselves, um, and be authentic. And we see that in their kind of beauty and wellness rituals. I think the other thing that really stands out about them is their sort of focus on wellness and mental health and how sort of taking care of themselves is so top of mind. They are aware of mental health. They think about it. They think about what's going to support it. They think about how products and brands are going to support their mental health and their kind of overall wellness. And again, that's just not something we used to see with younger people. We would see it when
Hmm.
women got older and we would
Right.
realize, oh, we should take care of ourselves. But now we're seeing it so much younger. And again, it's just beautiful to see a 19-year-old say, oh, I focus on these products because the scent calms me down, or I love the way this feels and I find it really relaxing. Like you can hear them sort of tying it into, again, this sort of overall wellness approach, which is lovely.
What do brands risk if they don't adapt to Gen Z's expectations?
Failure,
Yeah,
you know,
that's the
I
word that I
mean,
was going to say as well.
truly, I mean, I think about that tiny example that I shared, right? They looked at my website and
Hmm.
was like, this is all wrong. Well, what if you don't hear that? And what if you
You
just
don't
aren't,
know. You don't know
yeah,
what you don't know,
you don't
right?
know what you don't know. And to assume that you know is so dangerous because you're guessing, and guessing is very expensive, right? If you're not quite like, again, if I'm serving you, but I've never met you, I'm just making a bunch of guesses, and guesses are very expensive, and you only get so many tries before you've just not succeeded with them. They have tremendous buying power, right? They have, I want to remember the number correctly, but it's something like, 36 billion in buying power. They're going to be one of our wealthiest generations, if not our wealthiest generations. Like the actual numbers at stake are huge. And again, I'm biased, but it just seems foolish to me that every brand wouldn't be trying to understand this customer at sort of a deep personal level so
Hmm.
that they couldn't filter all that data through that understanding. And of course, a lot of brands are, I'm not saying that brands aren't trying to understand them. Of course, they are. This is a new way to do that. But I do think it's time to think differently about how we're engaging customers. And then the other thing that I think is important is we are seeing a shift away from influencers. And right now, it is a mindset shift and not a behavioral shift, right? We hear young women all the time tell us, I don't buy things just because influencers say that I should. I get sick of seeing influencers all the time. I want to pick my own things. Beautiful mindset. Obviously, we know from the sales data that influencers are incredibly impactful at moving product. But as I hear those sort of murmurs, I think, oh, where is this going? And how do brands get ahead of this? Because if your entire strategy is influencer based and this generation wants to sort of move away from them, isn't it time to start thinking about, oh, okay, what am I going to do that isn't influencer based so I can catch them at the beginning of this shift rather than waiting until influencers stop working or start working less well? Feels like a huge opportunity to me. And again, they're not there behaviorally, but they're going to get there.
Hmm. How do you see face value evolving over the next 5 years?
Oh, such a good question. I'm so excited about the evolution. And again, this first pilot is going to be such a learning experience because if I'm honest, there's so many value propositions. I'm not totally sure which one is most important. And I joke that if I was my own client, I would say, you're trying to do too many things and you have to prioritize.
Right.
But right, what did they say? You're always your own worst client. So I think, is the primary value learning about a generation or a group of consumers in person in this way? Is it about focusing more specifically on one industry, right? Will we end up doing a beauty conference, an apparel conference, a wellness conference? Will it be, you know, do we need to do a smaller group of consumers? Like, I think there's a bunch of questions about the execution, like how we'll set up future conferences, and then what other customer groups we'll talk to. Like there's obviously a ton of opportunity to talk to other customer groups. Moms come to mind. A conference like this focused on young moms would be a gold mine of insights, right? They have so much going on, so much buying power. All of their sort of needs are very top of mind. So I think we will do it for other consumer groups. I think we're going to refine the approach. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're really focusing on making it impactful, actionable, insightful. So we want it not to just be a fun day of talking to customers. It will be that for sure, but we want it to be a fun day of talking to customers where you're capturing insights, where everybody there is actually capturing insights and hearing things and writing down quotes. And then we're going to work with them on day two through this sort of AI powered framework that we have to take those insights, understand, is this a real thing or was it just a one off, right? Always the risk with qualitative. Is this actually a sizable opportunity or was this just something just one person said? So we have sort of a framework that helps you just kind of level set the size of the opportunity. And then if it is a meaningful opportunity, sort of ladder that into your business. Okay, so if this is an opportunity, what does that mean for us? What can we do when we go back to the office to put this insight into action? So we're going to work on that the second day. But again, that's yet another offering um, in this concept that we're trying out. We know that that works well. And again, I don't know if this has happened to you, but it happens to me at every conference. I take pages and pages of notes and I leave inspired and filled with ideas. And then I throw my notebook in the corner of my desk and I never open it again. I just forget about it. I move on to work. So we're trying to sort of make sure that that doesn't happen and that all of those learnings are put into action. So you kind of go back to your desk with 5 or 10 ideas for your brand that you can do right now.
Right, right.
So you really start to act on those
Feel
things while it's, yeah, while
correct.
it's fresh. Yeah.
No, I
So
think that's
yeah,
fantastic.
yeah,
So you've kind of have like two things going on. You're getting
true.
all this data, but then you have to, with all this information you're getting, you're also having to explain to these brands what exactly needs to be, these 5 to 10 things that needs to be done
Yeah.
immediately. You've worked with Sephora, Lululemon, and Amazon. What's one lesson you've carried from these experiences into Uncover?
One. So many lessons. I think the biggest lesson is it's very important with every client, regardless of size, regardless of sophistication, because obviously those are incredibly successful brands. It is very important to always understand what the brand already knows. So you're building
Mhm.
on it. Every brand has a wealth of information. When we really understand what they already know, it's successful because we can build on top of it. It is unsuccessful if we go back and say, we did this thing, and they say, we already knew that. I
Mhm.
learned that very early on, and I've always been very conscious. And then the other thing, and we are incorporating this into face value, is that it's really important to remind your audience, again, regardless of whether they're from Amazon or from a brand that's pre-launch, just reminding them how to listen and how to approach this type of research because it's really important to go in and try to sort of relieve yourself of bias, to really listen openly, to think about how to capture insights. And it can be very um, intimidating to tell to tell a group of incredibly senior, successful professionals, like, I'm going to remind you how to listen. But people are always grateful because it's just a helpful kind of prompt as you go into these conversations to be reminded that if you go in thinking, well, I know everything about Christina, so it doesn't really matter what she says, 'cause I already know that, then everything you say, I'm going to filter through that lens of like, yeah, yeah, I already knew that. But if I go in and think, I'm just going to pretend I've never met Christina before, and I'm just going to listen as though she is a brand new person to me. I'm going to hear new things. And you really have to go into it openly, and you have to ask questions in a way that really prompts insights, right? And like it's all the basics. You have
So
to,
you have to
yeah,
do that. You kind of have to like prep these these brands before they go in. Like, okay, whatever you think you know, just you don't.
yep.
So I guess you have to teach them that so they can get the most out of the experience, correct?
Yep. Yep. And sometimes it's truly teaching them because they've never done it before. Again, we work with a lot of founders, and so sometimes it's the very first time, and sometimes it's just a reminder. We'd even do it internally. Well, going into a
Mhm.
project, we'll say, like, let's just remember, we've done 40 studies with Gen Z women this year. We're going to go into this one really with fresh eyes. Let's go in and see what new things we can learn, and then we can map it back to other things we already knew. But again, you just want to approach those conversations. It's so valuable, right? Like thinking you just
Right.
get to sit down and ask somebody anything you want and they will tell you honestly. You really want to approach that as the valuable opportunity that it is and listen correctly and ask questions correctly so they tell you as much as they can.
So you're trying to teach these brands to listen, to turn their listening into loyalty,
Totally. Yeah, I love that.
right?
Yeah.
What role does empathy play in research and strategy?
I mean, I think that empathy is incredibly important. Again, if you have empathy for your customer and you really know them, you just make better decisions, right?
Hmm.
You use that empathy as a filter, and empathy has to be built, right? You can, appreciate a customer or, know about them, but if you don't have that ability to sort of put yourself in their shoes and kind of know their experience, it's very hard to, again, make the right decisions. And so there's a ton of empathy building that our work does, because often you go into someone's home and if you're a fashion designer, you go into someone's home and you think like, oh, well, they should have. I mean, I remember I was talking to a merchant who's a very good friend of mine. We did an in-home interview years and years ago. We still talk about it because she was like, we did the interview. We went through the closet. This person was explaining how many challenges they have putting together outfits, how many challenges they have not quite knowing what to wear and what to have you. And we came out and she was like, oh, well, I guess I just thought that everybody had like their sort of staples. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, well, doesn't everybody have, a straight black pant and then a wide legged black pant and a dark jean and a white button down? And I'm like, no,
I think
everybody,
making assumptions
yeah,
is
right. Right. And of
right.
course, like that's your lens. You're a merchant. Of course, you know that. Like it's, the oxygen you breathe. But consumers don't know that. And even if you tell
Right.
them that, how do they know which ones to buy? How do they know? And so like there's so much need for, and she was like, oh, I see it now. So much need for education, so much need for outfitting help, so much need to sort of prompt the consumer and lead them on this journey so they do have a wardrobe they feel great about. I see 1,000 opportunities. And I was like, right. And you wouldn't have had you not been in that closet with them, right? Realizing that they don't have those staples, they don't even know what those are. So
They
it
don't
is,
even know what
yeah,
staples are, right?
right.
What would you give one piece of advice to every beauty and wellness founder today? What would it be?
It would be talk to your consumers firsthand as often as you can in a way that is as unbiased as possible, right? Lots of
Hmm.
brands talk to their consumers and, give them things and ask them to post content, and that's all great. But just like really sitting down and having a conversation with a consumer that is unbiased, where you don't want anything from them but information, where they're not getting anything but exchanging information, is incredibly valuable.
What's one brand do you think that really gets Gen Z right now?
Um, Well, the one that comes to mind, I mean, I think a lot of brands are doing well. I think E.L.F is doing some really good things. I think Ulta is doing some really good things. The brand that continually sort of wows me is Not Your Mother's Hair Care. They are a client of ours. And they do such a beautiful job of just really living through their consumers' eyes. They do so much work to understand their consumers in all sorts of different ways. They bring her into every conversation, into every room, into everything that they do. And you can really see it and you feel it when you're at their offices. You can feel like, oh, they are very focused on understanding and serving this one consumer, and they know her and they always want to get to know her better. So I think that they have been sort of inspiring me lately. But again, a lot of brands are doing really well. Like Ulta's launching some new services and ideas that, I just saw that they're doing these sort of parties. They're now hosting parties in the stores, which I think is a great idea. That sort of experiential in-person opportunity is so
Hmm.
huge with Gen Z. So lots of brands, but Not Your Mother's inspires me with their focus on their consumers.
If you could ban one overused marketing buzzword, what would it be?
I already used it, but I'm going to say authenticity. Um,
Ah,
because I think it's overused because we hear it from consumers, but it's something that's very easy to say, and I think as soon as you say it, you probably aren't being authentic. So I think that one's a big buzzword. I have lots, but that's probably the one I would ban, only because I think it would force everybody to dig a bit deeper and figure out what do they really want to
right.
be.
Your go-to beauty or wellness ritual when you're too busy,
Oh, it's yoga always.
right?
Um, well, I guess I have
Agreed.
two. So yoga, I can't survive without yoga, and when I least want to do it is when I need it most.
Exactly.
And not dissimilarly, my friends and I have a ritual where we go dancing, and when I least want to do it is when I need to do it most. And I'm always like, I cannot go out and stay out late and dance with you crazy gals. But we do, and we have so much fun. And the next day I feel so rejuvenated, and it's so counterintuitive, right? Because going out late shouldn't be a wellness ritual, but that time with them and that sort of freedom um
Right.
and just like letting it all go and just being with my people is very drives wellness.
I love that. What's one consumer insight that totally surprised you?
I think that the degree to which Gen Z shops, the way that they shop is a recent, there's sort of a recent insight that we've been uncovering over and over again is that Gen Z really tends to make their decisions online and then they fulfill in store. And
Oh,
so
interesting.
versus previous generations where right we go to the store and we browse and we see what we like and we make so much of our decisions happen in store if we're shopping in store and they're really different and it's interesting being in store with them and watching them not browse they're looking to identify the brand that they saw online, the brand that they've already heard about, the brand they already know that they want, and if they do discover something in that environment they will immediately take a photo, FaceTime a friend, look it up online. Like that sort of online component of vetting a product is
Mhm.
absolutely critical. And so I think there's some misconception where we hear, oh, they're going into stores, they love in-person experiences. Absolutely true. Of course, they love stores. You don't have to pay for shipping. You get the thing you want right now. It's fun to be out. You can go with your friends, all of those things. That doesn't mean that they're making decisions in stores. They're really making decisions outside of store and online, and then using the store as a fulfillment opportunity.
Who would be your dream speaker or collaborator at face value?
I mean, it would have to be somebody who is in Gen Z, but I'm stuck because I want to say Michelle Obama because she's always my dream speaker. I mean, honestly, my dream speaker would be a 20-year-old woman who just sort of exemplifies this generation. There's a gal in our sort of ambassador group that I'm thinking of, but it would really be just a consumer, just a girl who's just a
Mhm.
normal girl who could come and say, like, this is just who I am and how I think and
And
what
be
I
able to
do.
express herself freely and openly.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
because I
I, I
think
get
that's so
that.
much who they are, right? Like, and so much what we're about is that it really is about the actual people that you're trying to reach and not, I think there's a million influencers that they love and that we love and celebrities and all of those things. But I think truly, like I would have, and am at face value having consumers do, be our sort of keynote speakers.
What do you do when your day isn't flowing?
I have to go for a walk if I'm really stuck. I always say the answer is outside. And so I go outside and I start, and again, it's very hard for me to do because I want to sit at my computer and just stare at it until the
And
answers show up, but
plow,
they
right.
don't, right? And I have,
You
been
sometimes need to
enough.
detach.
Yeah. And I always joke like, oh yeah, the answer's just up the block because I'll go outside and I walk and it
It's
doesn't take
remarkable,
long.
isn't it?
And then
You
it's
go
like the
walk and
clouds of
like,
my mind. Yeah. The clouds in my mind
absolutely.
part. And I'm like, oh, there it is.
Yeah. Those
There you
these
go.
ideas just come that you just need to
Yeah.
change. I totally agree. Where's your happy place?
I grew up in Lake Tahoe. And so probably my happiest place is there in the summer. I love the summers up there. Everyone
The
thinks about it
best
for
air
skiing,
smells
but
so good.
it smells so good and it's so warm, but
Right?
not hot, and the lake feels great. So that's probably my happy place. And my family's there with me. So that's really
I
where
love
I'm
that.
happiest.
Coffee, tea, or green juice in the morning.
Coffee.
or all three? Coffee.
Well, water with lemon first.
Of course you do. Of course we
I
do.
force myself to drink water with lemon and I stare at the coffee maker while I'm drinking it because I want my coffee so bad. But then coffee.
I've been adding a pinch of mineral salt to it and like three
Oh,
drops of olive oil.
oh,
Really great for digestion, but
okay.
rehydrating, realkalining. So that's my beauty
Oh,
tip of the interview
I'm
today.
gonna try that. I love
Yes,
that.
like three little drops of organic
Yeah,
olive oil.
I keep saying I'm gonna do the like plunge, the cold plunge with my face in cold water, but I haven't actually done it yet.
I have a roller thing that I keep in the refrigerator,
Yeah.
and I just do that in the morning to depuff. It just helps. And I've been obsessed with washing the face. That's like, do you do that at all?
I don't. But I've seen it and I think about it. I like the
My
roller and
algorithm,
the
yeah,
yeah,
roller's great, but the wash
right.
is good. My algorithm on Instagram is like all of that. It's like
Mm,
all I see.
I love that.
Right. How important is self-care, and what are a few of your favorite tips that you can share with me?
I mean, I think that self-care is so critical because, and they always say it about women, so it sounds corny, but if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else, right? You
It's
just
true.
truly, if you think about like, if I don't maintain this machine, then how can it work properly? So I think that it's very important. In terms of tips, I think that women in particular tend to think about self-care as a luxury and often have guilt of like, oh, I stole away for a massage. No, you didn't. You needed a massage so that you could continue to function at the incredibly high level that we all
Agreed.
do. So
Agreed.
let's not treat it like you went and bought
Self-care
yourself a
isn't
Learjet.
selfish.
Right. It's not
Exactly.
selfish.
It's
Like it,
not. You're doing
yeah,
it's the best thing you can do for everyone else is take care of you because you're going to have more energy, no resentment towards everyone else because you're
totally.
constantly giving. And I completely agree with you. What's one product that you cannot live without?
Mm, red lipstick, always. Um, that's my sort of go-to if I'm feeling tired, need to get ready fast, anything, I just put on red lipstick and it's sort of my cheat.
Do you find it drying? Like, do you put a
It
lip balm underneath
I don't put a lip balm underneath because the drier it goes on, the better it stays, but I do put lip balm over it.
or a
So
lip
throughout the
gloss?
day,
And
I'll just put
yeah,
little
to
something on
freshen it
top
up a
of.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the best advice that you have ever received?
Best advice I've ever received is don't wish time away. And so I was talking to a very good friend of mine, and she was talking about being frustrated about something or someone. And she was like, but like I wish that would stop being a thing. But I don't want to wish the time away. Like rather than just trying to get through something,
Hmm.
really thinking about how do I fix this so that this time is valuable and well spent? Because it's obviously a finite resource that we all have. And so rather
Right.
than sort of wasting it and wishing that you were past something, really trying to figure out how to optimize.
What have I not asked you that you'd like to share today?
Love that question. I'm going to steal that question from you.
I will give that to you with a red bow.
Thank you. That's a good gift. Um, I don't even know how why now, I think is it's one of my favorite questions. And so why am I doing this sort of new after 20 years? Why am I trying a new way of doing research? And I think the answer is twofold. One, it's been 20 years and I really wanted to take this moment and mark it and not just wish the time away, but really recognize, this is a milestone. How do I want to think about my business? How do I want to do things differently? What have I learned? Um, and that really dovetailed nicely into like really doing some research on my business and my career and what I've seen over all these years, which led me to do face value, right? Post COVID, we're so much farther away from each other, so much farther away from consumers. We have this new generation that's so much different. There's just all of these moments and like leading up to it's time to do something different. It's time to do something big. And so that is what led me here.
Samantha, I would like to thank you for giving us a peek into how you're revolutionizing consumer insights with face value. To my listeners, if you're a brand leader ready to connect directly with Gen Z and walk away with authentic strategies, join Samantha in Austin this October. And you can find all the details at face value. We're going to have that in the show notes. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, share this episode with a friend. Keep living beautiful, busy, happy lives and love big. I'll see you next week. And I'm Christina Flack.